Hello and welcome to this episode, another episode of MarketEd.Live, the podcast for marketers who are looking to their own community to find out what's working now and, importantly, what's around the corner. In every episode, we'll bring to you a guest to talk about a specific marketing topic that will help you broaden your horizons. So, if you're into social media, you can learn all about SEO, branding, customer experience, and much, much more just by listening to your peers. We'll have the speakers from last year's event and this year's MarketEd.Live, which takes place, as if you didn't know, on Tuesday the 25th of September 2018 at the magnificent Nottingham Contemporary. And we'll also have you with us too, our wonderful community of attendees and wannabe attendees, because, well, your experience is just as valid as anyone else's. Now, if you'd like to be on the podcast, just drop us a line at hey@marketed.live. This show is sponsored by Podcast Websites, the industry-leading platform for creating a world-class audio marketing channel for yourself or your clients. Audio marketing delivers one of the highest engagement rates of any marketing channel on the planet. And according to Edison research, over 75% of people who listen to podcasts take action based on the host simply asking them to do something. Now, the team at Podcast Websites, who are based here in the UK, are helping us to bring this podcast to life. So massive thanks to them for making this happen. If you're thinking about starting a podcast for you or your clients, please check out podcastwebsites.com and see what they have to offer. Right now, listeners to this podcast and MarketEd.Live ticket holders can get 25% off membership for life as long as they sign up by the 31st of October 2018. Now, in today's episode, I am absolutely thrilled to introduce to you someone who spoke at last year's MarketEd.Live over in Derby and was so good that we're having him back for 2018. Either that or we couldn't find anyone else. I'll let you decide. Welcome, Ross Davies.
No pressure.
I went a bit high-pitched then. I'm not quite sure why. I must have got very excited about you being here.
I like that intro. It was really kind of you.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thanks for joining us today on our podcast. Let's start off with you telling everyone a bit about who you are, what you do, what your business is, and why you sat here today.
Hi guys. I'm Ross from Strafe Creative. We're a design agency based in Nottingham in the UK. And we specialise in something called conversion rate optimization on our websites. So that's a bit big brother, but basically analysing how users are moving around websites, and we can basically manipulate the site to increase the number of sales that you guys are getting.
Excellent. And you've got a good reputation, certainly in the local area. I know you've won lots of awards. I'm quite interested in the kind of award thing, actually. Like, how do you go for some of these awards that you've got? Have you entered them? Have people recommended you?
So awards is one of the most important things to basically get more sales through. I'd say it's a big credibility builder, and credibility means more sales generally, especially if you've never heard of a company before. The fact that you can see that they've won some awards is a big way of just going, okay, well, let's trust this company. I want them to do my work. So we have a process where we enter a lot of awards. There's a bit of a free list that you guys can get on called Boost Marketing, which you can sign up for. You can put in what you guys do for a living, and they will send you a targeted list of like 100 different awards that you can enter every month.
Right, okay. What's that called again?
Boost Marketing.
Okay.
So the way those guys make money is they will enter the awards for you. But to get on their list, as building up their database, is they give away the awards that they can enter for you, so you can enter them.
Right.
So we have copywriters on staff, so we just enter all our awards. And actually, once you've kind of got through some of them, it's just a case of they pretty much ask all the same questions. So it's just a case of running through them. Some of them are design awards where we have to put our work forward as well, but we have to put a lot of theory into kind of explaining how we've done that and why we've done it. But that's what it kind of all comes back to. It all comes back to the reason we do it, which is the credibility. So if we've got all those lists of all those logos that are on our site and all the awards that we've won, then people trust us and they're more likely to get in touch.
Right, okay. Now that's interesting because if you'd have been on the MarketEd.Live website, MarketEd.Live,
nice.
Then, yeah, do you like that? Then you will see on various speaker pages some of the awards that they've won. Now,
yes.
your company, Strafe,
Yep.
is also helping us with the website and is partnering with us to provide a website, which we're very grateful for. It's a great looking website.
Yeah.
But you've been in charge of the design for that,
Yes.
with the aim of getting us more ticket sales. And on speaker pages, there are awards on there. So that must be a conscious decision to insert some of those for that reason.
Yes, so the main reason we do that is if they've never heard of that speaker before, there's a couple of things that kind of come up. Let me just turn that. There's a couple of things that kind of come from that. So you would either potentially recognise the face. So if you recognise the face, that's great. You might recognise the name, but you might not know the face. So that's why we've got the name and the picture. You might not know either of those, but you might know the name of the company, and you trust the company. So, for example, if you had a speaker from, I think we've had one before from like Microsoft or something like that, that you might not know of the person or the name, but you might know the logo. So we always include that as well. Or the other thing that we try and put on there is just some of the awards that you guys have won. So you may have heard of that. So we were up for the Amazon Young Entrepreneur of the Year. So just immediately because it says Amazon on there, there's immediately that kind of connotations of credibility. So we think it's quite important that if you don't necessarily know who the speaker is, yes, you might like to know a little bit about them, but immediately if you can see some of the awards or some of the things that they've done, you're automatically going to trust them that little bit more. So that's why we made sure to include that on the design.
Cool. So credibility, and I quite like the idea that there are almost different points of connection between the visitors to the website and the thing that you're driving them towards.
Yes.
So, like you say, the logo or the person or the name, the image.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. So there must be some psychology behind that. Then, do you know whether it takes a couple or 3 or 4 different points to help?
There's a general supposed rule that we apply that is to do with all marketing, which is you have these 7 touch points. So these 7 touch points that you have to go through before someone will get in touch with you. And we say that it's very similar from a credibility point of view, that there's 7 bits of information that they need to see before they make that decision that they want to potentially work with you. And that might be on MarketEd.Live, that we might go, okay, well, is it on the topics that I want to cover? Do I know any of the speakers, or am I impressed by any of the awards that they've done? How easy is it to get to? Because we want to know that. What is the location of where it's held, so you can get to? Are the hotels accessible? So there's all these little kind of touch points that start to add up, that if we can mark all of those as a yes, then someone's far more likely to attend. We don't want to leave people open to have to figure some of the stuff out themselves. So we might say, if it just said Nottingham Contemporary, but didn't list any of the taxi ranks or the trams or the car parks that were close, then that's a question that a potential person is going to have. So they're going to be like, well, how easy is it to get to?
Right.
So if we can answer all those questions for them, all these separate little bits of information all start to make up the overall decision for them.
So this is a process then, really, isn't it? This is part of the design process, I guess, whereby you're thinking, yes, what are the objections? Not necessarily, does it look pretty?
Yep.
Because
I
think
look good, though.
It's got to look good. Yes, and it does look good
as well.
But I think the tendency from people, let's say, creating their own website is to focus on things like, what are my colours? Can I put my logo on?
Yeah.
Do I want sort of 3 pictures? And what does my About Us section look like?
Yeah.
Whereas what you're saying is, actually, that's the wrong thing to do. You can that's kind of like the fluff.
Yeah.
But the core substance is, what are people going to do? What's the functionality that people want
100%.
when they visit the website?
The whole kind of point is, yes, we want it to look aesthetically beautiful. Like, that's the whole point of it. And if you're going to spend that time on it, you want to be really proud of what you've done. But at the end of the day, the design of your website should meet those objections. And it's not necessarily the case of, for like service businesses, that they don't necessarily need to get that sale right there. But it needs to give them enough for them to go, you know what, yes, I do want to get in touch with these people. Or buy a ticket to MarketEd.Live.
Yeah.
That's the other way of doing it. Or, we need to make sure we're delivering enough on an e-commerce site that they go, yes, I want to buy this product from these people.
Whether that's, say, pictures of the product or gaze and where they are.
Yeah. So and there's all that. So like we've done one with a beanbag company. And one of the big ones that came up, I just covered this in the talk last year actually. And one of the things that we found, one of the objections that they had is, beanbags, you don't know the overall size of them, really. So there's 2 things you need to figure out with the size of a beanbag is kind of how big it sits when it's flat, but also how big you are in the seat.
Yeah.
And what we found is, from an objections point of view, is a lot of people were buying them either for themselves or their children. So just buying one that said large might be way too big for a child. So instead, we just had some photos taken of small ones, medium, large, and extra large. and we had a row where it was an adult on them, and then a row with children on it, and the conversion rate doubled. Just from that simple kind of bit of information.
That's like context, I suppose, isn't it?
It's just going, oh, so that's what it is.
Right. And
because we were getting that question a lot, so they were always getting like rang up, going like I have a 8-year-old child. Will this one be big enough for them?
And they could be an 8-year-old child, or they could be like me. Imagine me as an 8-year-old child, like true. Age 2 or something. Okay, so that's
it's
that.
That
Yeah,
in context basically.
Yeah,
and it's meeting those particular objections of them.
Where do you get the questions from then? So let's say you're working in, or you're designing a website for an industry that you don't really have a huge amount of domain knowledge personally.
Yes.
How do you understand what sort of questions people might be asking?
So there's the two approaches that you can potentially take. The first one is you can just ask them. So there's loads of softwares out there that you can use, like Hotjar, VWO, which is my kind of weapon of choice, Qualaroo. So, and all of these will basically ask a question in the bottom right corner. So you guys will have seen like live chat before that sits in the bottom right corner. The only difference with this is as you go to leave the page, a little question pops up and it just says something on the lines of what stopped you buying today is normally our go-to question. And then actually people fill that in quite a lot, like 20% would fill that in. So with enough traffic, you'll get a decent idea of what they're trying to find out.
Right. Okay. So you need certain numbers of responses to
yes,
to
yeah,
make
you
that
need.
valid.
So otherwise, yeah, you have no idea. The other one that you can just do is just research it. So we did with a jacuzzi company recently that they didn't want to put the software on. They just wanted us to kind of crack on with it as quick as possible. So we had to do that research. So we went on like loads of jacuzzi websites, loads of jacuzzi forums, and all these different things. And one of the bits that we found, which was really interesting, was most jacuzzi companies, you can kind of wet test them. So you can go along, try them out, make sure you like the jets and all that sort of stuff.
I used to do some IT for a jacuzzi company once.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I know that people do try it.
So that's quite good. But what a lot of the forums were saying is, let's say, not to be overly gender stereotypical, but like an older woman in her 50s and 60s didn't necessarily want to be shown around the jacuzzi by a teenager or a 20-year-old, like a male.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
So one of the things we've done on the news site is they can pick their staff member that they're seen by. And the way so originally we toyed with, do we let you choose your gender? But we thought that's probably breaks a law or two.
Right, yeah, probably
breaks a law that you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So the way we've just done it instead is we've made it friendly, and it's like, you can pick Paul. He has a family and he does this, or you can pick so-and-so. He does this. And in that way, if they only want to be seen by a woman, they can just select the woman.
So actually you're building, interestingly, not personas of a customer there, but you're building a persona of the staff member.
And that does two parts. So it makes them more friendly, more approachable, they're going to put the time in, but also that it meets that objection of, well, I don't want to go wet test it if I don't know who I'm going to be seen by.
Okay.
So that way you kind of know the face you're expecting. And that's made a big difference as well.
And can you quantify that? Is that again double appointments or
the site isn't? It will be live by the time the next talk is, but it's not live at the moment.
Okay.
But that's from our research that we've noticed this, and already just discussing that with what they've done so far is they've asked people when they've come in to say, would you have liked this feature? And they'll have gone, oh yeah, that would have been great.
Oh right, okay.
So we have numbers on that, but we don't have the site. But hopefully by the time the talk comes around, I can kind of mention that in more detail.
Okay, brilliant. Just looking at sort of things that are going on in the website and design world, what sort of trends are you seeing now coming up, or maybe looking a little bit forward to the future? Although, don't give away anything in your talk.
Okay, yeah.
What sort of trends, like I said, maybe design trends or something like that would give people an idea, listeners to this podcast or people watching, what sort of things are cool?
So the main one that's becoming more and more popular now is this kind of personalization of your own site. So there's a lot of websites that we're seeing that's becoming very on trend is literally, when I normally land on the page, you've got a big image and you've got a title that might say like, we do X.
Yes. Is that called a hero image?
Yeah, hero banner. Hero banner. Yeah, hero banner means it takes up the whole fold. And what a lot of them are doing now is it might say, like, for example, ours, it doesn't, but it could say, we do web design, how can we help you? And it leaves a gap for you to write your name in.
Okay. Yes, okay,
and then what it does is it then stores that, and then it personalizes all of the information on the site to you.
Where does it store it?
So it stores it in a cookie normally.
Okay.
And then it will basically, every time you then go on that site, it will say, this person's been on before, we know their name is Paul. and then all the call to action, so all the buttons instead could just say buy now, or
Yeah.
you know,
Or
do you
buy it,
need-
Paul.
or do
You need
it
this,
help?
Paul.
Yeah, it can be really personalised. Like, Paul, this would be great for you. Like, this is what you need.
You know when someone like overly mentions your name,
Yeah, and you're
Ross,
like,
all the time, Ross.
Yeah,
You know.
and you kind of go, I need that. I need
Okay.
that. So that's becoming really, really popular now. But that's based on lots of things. So
Can I just ask a question
Yeah,
about
yeah,
you know the topic of the moment,
Yes.
GDPR and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that? You know, obviously you say it uses cookies, right?
yes,
So that's covered, I guess, if you have your cookie stuff on
Yeah,
your
yeah.
website, and that's it. We don't need
Mhm.
to worry about the fact that somewhere the name is stored because it's stored on the local computer.
yeah, because it's in theory it shouldn't affect it. Obviously, we've got GDPR that's come in, but we already have a law that came in place called cookie law,
Yeah.
which, depending on who you speak to, subsedes it. Like, that's its own kind of element that's separate.
Yeah, I totally agree.
There's not loads of personal information on that. So the ruling is with the cookie law that I can't kind of fully tell who you are as a person. So because I can't approach you just as one person, because I don't know that just through the cookie, that's not covered under the GDPR. That's
Right.
covered just under the cookie law.
But as long as you're... What
If we
about
were-
your
if we
privacy
were
policy
like-
has to say that you use cookies though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
So we
that's-
still
okay.
need to go into all that detail and make sure that's really,
Fine.
really clear. And that should already be on there for the cookie law.
Right, yeah.
That should already be on there. So if it's not, that should also be in there.
Okay. So personalisation, a big thing.
Huge personalisation, and
Well-
that's also down to what you've looked at. So you'll already know this now that if you go on Netflix and you only look at certain types of films, it only shows you those.
Yes.
So the idea is that slowly over time now, personalisation can start to come into all sites. So if you were to go on Amazon and only look at certain products, if you then went on a separate, smaller site that sold electronics, it can take that data into account and say, well, they've been looking at headphones on this one, so we'll just show them headphones on ours.
Okay.
So there's a lot more kind of data sharing.
Yeah. That sounds
which-
frightening though.
Which is frightening. But that's kind of what this whole worry of, how Netflix can basically manipulate you to do anything. That's what the whole kind of worry is now. That
Because
it's propaganda that
yeah.
you can be forced to repeatedly buy the same things. Like Spotify, you essentially end up just listening to the same music or very similar type of music because it just keeps refining it down and down and down. And that's becoming more and more popular in web to push up conversions, essentially.
Right. Okay. So I mean, you can imagine, can't you? To push up conversions, that's exactly what you want to do.
Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't really. I mean, it's a big echo chamber filter bubble. It doesn't give you any kind of alternative landscape to look at.
That's without going into loads of details, because that's a little bit of what I'm going to cover in my talk. But that's what one of the big things is, that if you're a business owner, you just want to sell as much as possible, essentially. So if I tailor my stuff as much as possible to you, then I'll make more money. So that's great. But then at the same time, you have this whole kind of, well, if I'm just filtering it down, they never get to see any alternatives.
Yeah.
And is that going to affect how much money I make? And yes, that's probably the more ethical thing to do. Like, give them the options and let them make that
And
decision.
that is a thing, right?
Yeah, it's huge ethic. It's huge ethical
People
issue.
like ethical stuff. That's why we don't like plastic straws up the noses of turtles.
Yeah, exactly. This is a usual analogy, but yeah.
That might
It's
be
very
what
true.
goes on the front of the trailer.
But that's especially something to consider.
You're
Is kind of how far do you push it?
Yeah.
And should you have that ability to land on the site and be like, do you want it personalised to you or not? Like, that might be the way around it.
Okay. To
but
ask permission.
Yeah, but is that, like, most people don't necessarily read pop-ups. They'll just ignore it. They'll just close it. Like, people generally are quite lazy. So, like, the easier we can make it for them, the better. And that's the worry. That some people will probably just say, you know what, this easier, makes my life easier. So, yes, let's just do it.
Are we past worrying about things like site speed and mobile?
Good question. Site speed will always be an issue. The only difference now is that we're talking like milliseconds rather than half seconds or seconds. So
it's non-noticeable.
It's going to always speed up, but it's more important from a search engine point of view of if they think it's not as quick as it should be. There's loads of things that we can all be doing that loads of people don't. It's like any image that you put on your website, you should be compressing. So, for example, there's software like Smush It or Tiny JPEG, Tiny PNG. You can just put your image in there, compress it, and then put it onto your website, and that will like quarter the size. The easiest thing that slows sites down are just large images, and most people would, like, if you took it on your iPhone and then just uploaded that, like, that would be like a couple of meg, and that's bigger than your entire website, that one image. Like, you want an image under 100 kilobytes. So
those tools will help with
and those
that.
will just bring those all down.
For those people who maybe are marketers and they're responsible for either content on the website, or even if they're managing, say, a WordPress site that's been designed by someone else, or they're not at the point yet where they're engaging with an agency to design it. What are the top things or some piece of advice that you could give someone to think about when they're playing around with their website, just to make it a little bit better? How can they improve that? What's the biggest thing they can do?
It's signposting what you want the user to do, essentially. I think we all have a habit of falling into this. I'm going to write this really great piece of content, and then in the content I'm going to put like links, like little small kind of click here, I want you to do this, or just a phone number like in the middle of all our text. And because it's not really obvious what we want the user to do, no one does it. And I think the difference, how you're talking about before, where if the podcaster says you should do this, it's the same thing on the website. If they read all the content, even if it's said in the middle of it, just click here, and it doesn't catch their eye, they'll just skim right over it. Whereas if we make it really obvious, it's like, now that you've read this, do this thing, here's the big red shiny button, then they're far more likely to perform that action that we want them to do. And
is that because really, as visitors to a website, we don't really want to think about what we've got to do? We don't want the challenge. We just want to know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that also comes back to, which I've not really covered, but your website should have a very set purpose. So you shouldn't just have a website that's just there to be a brochure to explain what you do. Like, if that's sort of the case, then you're not really going to get that many sales and leads to it. So instead, what we want is we want to create something that has a very set purpose, whether that's I want to get more appointment bookings, I want to get more downloads of something to build my database, I want them to buy a particular thing. And then once we've decided on what exactly that is, it's really easy to design everything else around it. And that's where you can then signpost, and like you say, just people are lazy, they just want to know exactly what we want them to do. And that's where the difference is, that people go into it making it A, just a brochure, and B, just putting it in the text and thinking people are going to find it, and they just won't. Like that, even if they read it, they just skim straight past it.
So think, have a purpose, sit
and
back for a bit,
and big signposts on like, you've read this, do this. It should be literally that clear.
Excellent. Okay,
they're kind of key ones.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I'm sure there's some good tips that people can follow. So God, there's so much that you could talk about in terms of websites and design and so on. Let me ask you some quick questions. Yep. So last year you were a speaker at MarketEd.Live, taking yourself out of the equation, if you don't mind. Which speaker did you enjoy the most?
Oh, can't say myself. I'm going to go with the I want to call him Oprah Winfrey, but I can't remember his actual name.
He would love it if you called him the Oprah Winfrey.
What was his real name?
Ben Donker.
Ben Donker, yeah. He was amazing.
Amazing.
He's very passionate. Got out of the audience, and it was a really different talk to what I've seen before. It was very honest, very informative, but actually the way he kind of came all through the audience, got everyone heavily involved, and that's particular one that kind of stood out. And the reason I paused for so long is I was like, I can't actually remember the guy's name, but
that's
yeah,
all right.
Oprah's
fine.
Oprah.
I said to him afterwards, I said, you are the Oprah of analytics.
Maybe that's where I've got it from.
That's where you got it from, because he loved that. I think that was the description that he liked.
Yeah, like that should be on his LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, no, his sound is Ben. Again, everyone got really good feedback from last year, and I think the thing that we took away from last year was how incredible everybody was. I'm obviously hoping to replicate that this year. So again, without saying you, of the speakers that we've announced so far, who are you most looking forward to? Chris Marr? Yes. Because
I've been on his list for a while, and he's just really good. Like, he's the one that first introduced me to, like, he sent me I don't know how much I can go into here, but I'm going to go into it anyway. So he sent me this email, and it was like, hey Ross, I've recorded you this personal video, like, just click here. So I clicked it. He's like, oh, hey Ross, I know we met and like, it was really personal. He was staring straight at the camera. He was like, hey Ross, we met at this event. I know we only had a really brief chat, but I remember these couple of things about you, and I'd love for you to come along to this. Like, here's the link now. And I just bought it like there and then. I was like, oh my God, like, this is the power of personalized.
So that's signposting.
Yeah. And this is like, and also, I mean, that's two things there: signposting and personalization.
Yeah.
Like, most people can't be asked to make the effort to record it was like 20 seconds long, the video. And I spent like 600 quid with him, like that. I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. Yes.
There you go.
And just the things that he does and how he thinks it through. I do have a lot of time for, and his personality comes across in the way he says it as well. I just quite like that.
He's very individual. He's got a certain way that he carries himself and looks even, and he's very true to that, I think, as well.
Yeah,
which
really consistent, and just that whole kind of approach and the way his mind thinks. Like, it's really interesting how he moves forward with content and how it's something I'd never considered. There's many a thing that I've nicked from his being on his list. So if you're not on it, I'd get on his list as well.
You can find him at Content Marketing Academy, if you didn't know already. But you would know that if you went to MarketEd.Live, because you would find a link there to Chris.
Yeah, his logo's on there.
His logo's on there. His website's on there. Everything's on there. Ross, this is one question for you. What is the weirdest website you've ever had to design?
Not sure, my lads. We did
you say what you want.
We did a website for like a weed seeds, like cannabis seeds, and that was quite good. But it's a Spanish company, so it's not illegal in Spain. But we did it for them. The whole thing had to be hosted in Spain, and that was quite a good one. But they had like some really weird little features on it. So they were based on this coast. So they were insistent that as soon as you played the website, there was like seagull music playing.
Right.
So as soon as you land on it, the idea is you've got this coast, which actually is another whole futuristic thing that I'm going to cover, like the different senses.
Right. Interesting.
In the talk, but they had like this seagull noise playing, and it was all like really like they were quite open and quite creative in how we were allowed to do it, which was cool as well.
Oh, brilliant.
That was good. That's probably the most unusual one we've done.
Excellent. Oh, well, there'll be many more to come. I would imagine you're a very successful guy, and
thank you.
I'm really looking forward to hearing you speak at MarketEd.Live in September and being involved in the whole thing that goes on with the event only up the road anyway, which is awesome.
Yeah, not too far.
And Nottingham person. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming into the podcast.
Cool, no problem. Thank you.
And I can't remember how we finish it, but there we go.
Boom. Done.
Boom.
Sorry.
Boom. Well, that's all for this episode of MarketEd.Live. If you've enjoyed today's show, please do leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice and help spread the word about the podcast and about the event itself in September. Remember, MarketEd.Live brings together experts from all marketing disciplines. So if marketing's your thing, we really need to see you there. Visit MarketEd.Live for all the info on speakers, travel options, accommodation, and read the blog posts from your fellow attendees and speakers. We'll see you next time.